Formula One is often called the fastest laboratory on Earth. Every detail, every fraction of a second can decide the outcome of a race. But there is one part of Formula One that perfectly captures the sport's relentless pursuit of speed, precision, and innovation: the pit stop. Today, pit stops are breathtaking spectacles, executed in less than 2 seconds. But it wasn't always this way. Pit stops have a long and fascinating history, shaped by technology, regulations, and bold moments of strategy that changed the course of championships. This is the story of how pit stop strategies in Formula One evolved, from the slow repairs of the 1950s to the sub-2 second miracles that define the sport today. Back in the very first years of Formula One, pit stops weren't tactical weapons, they were more like emergency rooms. Cars of the 1950s were fragile machines, engines overheated, gearboxes failed regularly, and tires were tall, narrow, and so hard they could last an entire race without wearing out. Fuel tanks too were large enough to go the full distance. So what happened in the pit lane wasn't about gaining time. It was about making sure the car didn't fall apart before the checkered flag. Mechanics worked in overalls and flat caps, often with no helmets or fireproof gear. A tire change could take several minutes. If a suspension arm needed straightening or if a spark plug needed replacing, the driver might sit and wait, helmet off, while the crew scrambled with whatever tools they had on hand. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't timed, and it rarely won you a race. Back then, simply finishing a Grand Prix was a victory in itself. The 1970s brought change everywhere in Formula One. Slick tires, wings for downforce, and new engines that pushed speeds higher. And for the first time, teams began experimenting with the concept of strategic pit stops. Instead of filling the car heavy with fuel and trying to run the race non-stop, some visionaries asked, what if we started light, ran faster, and stopped mid-race to refuel and change tires? In 1974, Tyrrell began dabbling in planned stops, exploring whether stopping once might actually be faster than carrying extra weight. Other teams were skeptical. In many cases, pit work was still too slow and clumsy for this idea to pay off. But the seed was planted. Teams started to realize that pit stops didn't just have to fix problems, they could be part of the strategy. The early 1980s turned pit stops into weapons, and it started with Gordon Murray at Brabham. Murray calculated that lighter cars with smaller fuel loads could lap faster and make up any time lost during a pit stop. His plan, a mid-race refueling and tire change done quickly enough to offset the lost seconds. In 1982, at the Austrian Grand Prix, Nelson Piquet pulled off this bold strategy, stopping mid-race, refueling, and blasting back onto the track with fresh speed. Suddenly, pit stops weren't a weakness anymore. They were a way to win. By the mid-80s, other teams caught on. Williams and McLaren refined the idea. Race strategies became less about endurance and more about sprinting between pit stops. Races started to feel like a series of stints rather than one long slog, but pit lane choreography was still primitive. Fuel rigs were slower, mechanics were not yet specialized. But the door had been opened and Formula One would never look back. The 1990s were the golden era of refueling, codified when the FIA officially reintroduced mid-race refueling in 1994. From then on, pit stops became the center of race strategy. For the first time, tire changes, fuel loads, and stint lengths were all variables that could be manipulated. Suddenly, every race had multiple possible narrative arcs: 2-stop versus 3-stop debates, short fueling for track position, long stints to run in clean air. The pit wall became a war room, with strategists running calculations on pit windows and traffic. Nobody exploited this better than Michael Schumacher with Benetton and later Ferrari. His strategist, Ross Brawn, was a master of the so-called undercut. Instead of waiting to pit until the tires fell off, Schumacher would box earlier, get onto fresh rubber, and unleash a string of blistering laps. By the time rivals pitted later, Schumacher had already leapfrogged them. These were the years when pit stops became the heartbeat of Formula One. Fans would hold their breath as cars darted into the pits, because the outcome of a whole afternoon could hinge on those crucial seconds. But along with the drama came new dangers. High-pressure fuel rigs were volatile. Pit fires broke out frequently. Crews worked unprotected with flammable fuel. Still, the drama made for unforgettable moments. Think of Schumacher's fuel-heavy drive at Hungary 1998, when he stopped 3 times but won after delivering qualifying laps in the middle of the race. These were the years when F1 strategy went from guesswork to science. By the 2000s, refueling stops hit their peak. Teams perfected choreography, with 20 mechanics drilling to reduce every moment of wasted time. What once took 9 or 10 seconds dropped below 3, while still including a full fuel load. But the risk was ever present. A single mistake could be catastrophic. At the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, Ferrari released Felipe Massa too soon. Dragging a fuel hose down the pit lane not only cost him the race, it arguably cost him the World Championship. In 2009, after years of accidents and pressure, the FIA outlawed refueling entirely. The risk was too high. That ban would radically reshape pit stops once again. Without refueling, tires became the central focus of pit stop strategy. Every Grand Prix became a battle of rubber. In 2011, Pirelli entered Formula One with a mandate to produce high-degradation tires. Instead of trying to make stints last forever, the goal was to force tactical variety. Different compounds degraded at different rates, and drivers had to use at least 2 per race. Suddenly, races took on a fascinating fascinating tension. Should you pit early and unleash the undercut? Should you stretch the stint and go for the overcut instead? Or could you gamble on a one-stop while rivals went for two? Memorable moments echoed through the decade. In 2013 at Silverstone, multiple tire blowouts threw strategies into chaos. In 2016 Monaco, Daniel Ricciardo lost a likely victory due to a botched Red Bull tire stop. And at countless races, Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes pulled off tactical masterstrokes by forcing rivals into the pits early. Pit strategy now wasn't just about mechanics. It was psychology, a chess match at 300 kilometers per hour. That brings us into the modern era, where pit stops are feats of near superhuman coordination. Red Bull holds the record, a jaw-dropping 1.82-second stop. Watching 20 mechanics swap 4 tires faster than the blink of an eye is a reminder that F1 is as much theater as it is sport. Each crew member has a single role. Tire off, tire on, wheel gun, stabilizer, lollipop man. Backup mechanics are ready in case of failure. Drivers practice stopping on the marks with millimeter precision, but it's not just the pit box, it's the strategy room. Dozens of engineers crunch live telemetry and simulation data, projecting lap times, tire wear, and weather changes. The question of when to stop has become as important as how fast you stop. And with overtaking still difficult on some tracks, a perfectly timed stop can still win you the race. As Formula One looks to the future, pit stops will continue evolving. Sustainability goals could change tire construction, forcing teams to adapt. Ban on tire warmers? That means undercuts may behave differently. New compounds? That changes the balance between one-stop and two-stop races. And every year, strategy simulations get more advanced, with AI helping teams predict rivals' moves even before they happen. There is even occasional talk of reintroducing safe refueling down the line. If that happens, strategies could once again transform overnight. From slow refueling halts in the 1950s, to Brabham's tactical gamble in the 1980s, to Schumacher's undercuts in the 1990s, to modern-day Red Bull pit stops that beat human reaction time. Pit stops tell the story of Formula One itself. They're the perfect blend of man, machine, and strategy. They capture all the tension of Formula One in a handful of seconds. And as new rules and technology push the sport forward, one thing is certain. Pit stops will always remain one of the most thrilling, decisive, and unforgettable parts of a Formula One Grand Prix.